Star Wars 7x7, episode 1837. Today we're going to check in on Galaxy's Edge. Let's go. Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod and this is Star Wars 7x7. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode, the last of a set of three, not really a set per se, just a set because I happen to be in Boston, Massachusetts, and so that's where I'm recording from. This is the last of the three episodes I'll be recording from here, and then it'll be back to the standard recording studio in New Hampshire. And I'm checking in on Galaxy's Edge because there have been some dates that have been announced, so we've got some new anticipation that's built up for the land, and a couple of those dates are not quite what we expected. One thing that is definitely proceeding as expected is the date for the opening of Galaxy's Edge at Walt Disney World in Orlando. That is slated for August 29th, and again, as with Anaheim, it is only opening with one major ride open, Smuggler's Run, and a whole bunch of other stuff too, naturally. The other major ride, Rise of the Resistance, is not going to open at the same time as the park opening. This is new, not new news, I should say. This is known news. This is news that we've been holding on to for a while. Just the difference is that one of those openings has been delayed further than we thought it was going to be. The opening of Rise of the Resistance is actually going to happen first in Orlando, surprise, surprise, in December, on December 5th, actually, on the occasion of Walt Disney's birthday, as it turns out. I'm sure that is not an accident by any stretch of the imagination. But it turns out that it's not going to be until mid-January until Rise of the Resistance opens in Disneyland out in Anaheim. And we'll talk about what happens on the Rise of the Resistance ride after the break, but we're not going to the break just yet. Before we do that, I've seen some reports percolating about attendance at Disneyland and it seeming to be lower than expected. And so naturally this is causing some discussion as to, what does this mean actually? And, it's hard to get a read on the situation because on the one hand, of course, Disneyland isn't announcing their park attendance numbers. I mean, they never have, so it's not like this is unusual or anything like that. But why would the numbers be down or seemingly down? Well, it's one of those situations where, because of the fact that nobody has numbers, everybody's just left to guessing. But it is kind of interesting to consider the fact that park capacity, according to the Disneyland folks, has been increased by 20% with the addition of Star Wars Land. And naturally, Star Wars Land is drawing people out of the rest of the park because of its newness and excitement and whatnot. So I guess the rest of the park is seeming to be less crowded comparatively. But even then, Star Wars, the Galaxy's Edge place has not had the crazy wait times in some instances that some people have expected. And that's being attributed to, park reservation management systems and the general work that they've done to try to improve the traffic flow in the park as well as in Galaxy's Edge in specific, knowing that it was going to be crazy. And I guess some annual pass holders. I don't know a heck of a lot about this, but I gather that there are tier levels for annual pass holders and season pass holders and Southern California pass holders, and some of them have been shut out because of the anticipated rush from crazy Star Wars fans wanting to get in there as quickly as possible. And yeah, I would be one of them too if I wasn't on this coast. But be that as it may, it seems like we don't have the whole story about that. And I think, with the addition of the fact that the Rise of the Resistance ride hasn't even opened yet, and, all these other caveats, I think it's probably too early to judge the park a success or a failure or something in the middle even. I think at this point, it's all about, let's see how this sucker opens up and evaluate it maybe even a couple of years down the line. It's just really interesting to see people rushing to judgment about it already. I think there's still a lot of things we need to learn about this park, but my 2 cents on the matter. Let's talk about Rise of the Resistance and what is in store for us on that ride, or at least what they've told us so far. We'll get to that after the break. Stay tuned. This episode is brought to you by Constant Contact, the premier email marketing solution for small businesses and organizations. I've used their service since 2003, and over the past decade and a half, I've watched them evolve, make the product simpler, more powerful, easy to use, and do everything that they can to help train people to use the product more effectively and for it to work with other forms of marketing like social media, for example. So check out sw7x7.com/email to learn more about Constant Contact and start a free trial. Once again, that is sw7x7.com/email for a free trial. Welcome back. All right, so here's what we know about Rise of the Resistance so far, what's been announced publicly, okay? So this is not rumor or leak or spoiler or anything like that. This is all visual information that is out there. So from what we know, the whole process of going through the ride, like you go into the Resistance base and you're briefed for a mission by Rey, a holographic image of Rey as she appears in The Force Awakens. And she's asking everybody there to go on a very important mission to support the Resistance in their fight against the First Order. And an animatronic BB-8 is there too. And according to this report, or according to multiple reports, Poe Dameron is going to be our wingman on the mission, and we get to see his X-Wing fighter, and he will be communicating with Nien Nunb, who is our pilot on the transport that we are flying. I'm saying we, assuming that I'm on the ride with you. And as soon as we leave, but to things go from, what they are to bad, just bad. Apparently, a couple of Star Destroyers have tracked us and they show up, and Poe has to leave after a brief battle because he has to go get reinforcements to help, because one X-Wing against 2 Star Destroyers, odds aren't that good. So our transport, which is going to be us and 48 other people, because there are 50 people in the transport, will get sucked into the First Order's Star Destroyer, one of them at least, and we're going to get marched off our transport and put into prison cells. And these prison cells are supposed to be like the prison cell that we saw in The Force Awakens, where Kylo Ren had Poe Dameron. And yeah, that's going to be a little bit nervous-making, I would imagine. And I guess the groups are going to be separated, or the original 50, are going to be separated into smaller groups and put into individual cells. And after that, we don't know, because they've said something's going to happen where you're going to have to get out of there. And what we do know is that the Resistance is going to come help somehow, and that we're going to get involved in a battle between the Resistance and the First Order. And Kylo Ren is going to show up in quote-unquote many forms. What exactly that means, I can't even begin to imagine. It could be with a helmet, without a helmet, maybe in his TIE silencer, who knows. But anyway, that at least is what we know about Rise of the Resistance. And again, opening on December 5th in Orlando, and on January 20th, I believe the date is, in Anaheim. And that is going to do it for this show as well. Thank you so much for joining me for it, as always, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.
This podcast is not endorsed or sponsored yet by Lucasfilm Limited, Disney, or 20th Century Fox. It is intended for entertainment and information purposes only. Star Wars, the Star Wars logo, all names and pictures of Star Wars characters, vehicles, and any other related Star Wars items are registered trademarks and/or copyrights of Lucasfilm Limited or their respective trademark and copyright holders. May the Force be with them. All original content is copyright 2019 by Star Wars 7x7. We hope you love it.